Nigeria, we have seen the headlines. And once again, there is an uproar of political entertainment. He did not go to secondary school. He did not go to primary school. He is not qualified to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay, but before we go further, let me remind you that the bloggers and blogs do not govern Nigeria. The headlines do not govern Nigeria. Even the opposition candidates do not govern Nigeria. This right here is what governs Nigeria, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So let's see what the Constitution has to say. Now open the Constitution to section 131 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. This section provides the criteria for which a person will be elected or can be elected to the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Firstly, such a person must be a Nigerian citizen by birth. Secondly, such a person must have attained the age of 35 years. Thirdly, such a person must belong to a political party and must be sponsored by that party. And lastly, or fourthly, the one that interests you, such a person must be educated up to at least school certificate level or its equivalent. Now, right there are two key words I want us to hold on to. At least. That means school certificate level or its equivalent are the minimum threshold. Let me explain this in a way that you will further understand it, or you will clearly understand it. Paragraph B of the aforementioned section stipulates or provides that such a person must have attained the age of 35 years. Meaning 35 years is the minimum threshold. So if you are not up to 35, or if you are lower than 35 years of age, you do not qualify. But if you are 35 and above, so 50, 60, 75, 48, 39, 36, you qualify age-wise. So now let's come back to paragraph D, which is the one we are trying to address. It says, at least, such a person must be educated up to at least, still a minimum threshold of school certificate level or its equivalent. So somebody with nursery school certificate does not qualify. The question now is, the Constitution provides the minimum threshold. It does not say the maximum threshold. So somebody, or where do you keep somebody with a university certificate? Now let's take it further. The Constitution or the law, in its good heart and in its wisdom, went further in section 318 of the 1999 Constitution as amended to clearly define what school certificate or its equivalent mean. So let's read through real quick. And I am reading and quoting or reading verbatim. School certificate or its equivalent means a secondary school certificate or its equivalent, or grade 2 teacher certificate, the city and guild certificate, or education up to secondary school certificate level, or primary 6 school living certificate or its equivalent, and service in the public or private sector in the Federation in any capacity acceptable to the Independent National Electoral Commission for a minimum of 10 years, and attendance at courses and training in such institutions as may be acceptable to the INEC for periods totaling up to a minimum of 1 year, and the ability to read, write, understand, and communicate in the English language to the satisfaction of the INEC, and any other qualification acceptable by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, these are the exact words from section 318 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. For those who do not know, the Constitution is our grand norm as a country. In other words, all other laws derive their authority from here. And any other law that is inconsistent with the proviso of this Constitution is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. But that's not the point. So with all of this definition that section 318 has just done, it's telling us what school certificate level means or what its equivalent means. All of that is still a minimum threshold as seen in section 131 paragraph D that we have just read out. The minimum threshold is school certificate level or its equivalent. What then is the maximum threshold? That's a legal debate. Now, I need us to understand that there are 3 documents here. Don't confuse them. There's the Constitution, there's the INEC nomination form EC9, and then, of course, there are court judgments. They are not all the same thing. So what you are seeing online is the INEC nomination form EC9. Whether that meets or does not meet the routes provided for by the Constitution, because contrary to what many of you are thinking and joking about, the Constitution does not provide only one route. So it does not say if you have only, it does not limit the provisions to just school certificate level. It says, or its equivalent. It provides other opportunities, other equivalents in the words of the Constitution. So don't mix it up. If you have any problems with the routes provided for by the Constitution, that's a different argument. But as it were, I need to remind us again, just before we go, that while many of us, or many of you, are consuming politics as entertainment, political strategists, like the authority in question, are studying it as a profession. They have studied the Constitution, they have studied the laws, they have studied the processes, and by the time the debate makes it to the public, they have spent years preparing for it. So this is a legal debate. You can go ahead and argue whether such certificates are true, are authentic. You can argue the authenticity of the certificates. But remember that that section says at least school certificate level or its equivalent. It doesn't state at most. And as we go, we'll wait for your next argument, which is okay. Citizens are supposed to ask questions. But as you ask questions, please read the Constitution and read other laws to find your answers. I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this from a place of love. There are human beings who are just like cats. They have 9 lives. And just so it interests you, Jagaban no be guy name.